What is up, world? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast. We are here tonight, first off, to let you know that you can find us on any place where podcasts can be found. Second, we're also on YouTube. Also, I'm having a lot of fun on Instagram with the things we're making for our social media, so you should most definitely look at that too. But we're here tonight. Glad to have you. We're doing another remote session. So over here, we've got Vince. How's it going, man?
I'm good. I set up my whole little podcasting center in my basement. Got a nice light going on. Just in case we end up doing video for this. Who knows if it's actually going to work. Figuring out this whole podcasting from a distance thing has been a fun challenge.
It's a little bit different, isn't it?
Maybe we should just embrace and look at the silver lining, I guess. If there's a lot of bad things going on with the coronavirus, obviously. And one silver lining is that the coronavirus forced us to learn how to podcast remotely before Vince moves away. So
yeah.
Yes.
I guess if we got to pick something.
And Josh, how are you doing, my friend?
No, I'm good. All is well here. What were you going to say, Vince?
I was just going to say, it's just too bad with the coronavirus thing that we can't get together and figure this out. We still have to do it figure out from a distance. I don't want your diseases.
Shh. I'm not diseased, I promise.
I was talking to the viruses stuff. I don't want the viruses diseases. I don't know. Let's move on.
No more coronavirus, because we know that you guys come here as an escape from all of that bullcrap. So
yeah.
Well,
let's do this.
In those regards, what have we been watching this week? Josh, you been watching anything good?
So I finally caught up to real time on Better Call Saul. So I am up to date, seen the most recent episode. If you ever are watching it as well, the most recent episodes, and want to hit me up, just hit up our Twitter account, or if you know me and have my account personally, also hit me up there. I'd love to talk about it because Better Call Saul is great. And I think Breaking Bad is better, but not by that much. Better Call Saul is really, really good. Yeah, I love it because it's so much. Because obviously, there's still a lot of exciting stuff that goes on in Better Call Saul. Obviously, not as much like drugs and shooting and stuff as there is in Breaking Bad, but there is still a lot of it, as well as so much character development. And I mean, because obviously Breaking Bad is just, amongst all of the excitingness that kept the wide range of audiences in, is such a deep story and tale of a man doing the wrong things for the right reasons. So tons of Better Call Saul. Also, since I got AMC Premiere to catch up on Better Call Saul, I'm also watching The Walking Dead recently, most recent season. So that's been good as well.
Is that show still good?
It's fine. It's not super great, really, but I'm invested enough in the characters and just the universe itself that I'm still digging it. And since I already have AMC Premiere to watch Better Call Saul, it's a fine use of my time. It's, for me, it's better than, obviously I'm sure there's some series out there that I would love more than The Walking Dead, especially right now. But for me, it's better to do something I'm familiar with and that I know for sure that I enjoy than try to push into a new series. So
you trying to get prepared for zombies or something, man?
Shh. I heard it through the back roads that it's coming.
Let me just ask one question about Walking Dead. Are they making Negan the new main character?
I don't know. I don't believe so. But here's how it goes. Without spoilers, it's almost impossible to do stuff without spoilers. Yeah. But Negan, it's so strange that Negan is such a huge part of it. And it's really interesting to see because obviously all the stuff that Negan did that he's trying to integrate into society, but it's interesting. It's hard. There's a lot of turnover with the characters, especially the old cast, which is hard, but it's a story. It's a lot of stuff. And,
my wife she loves Negan. So
Jeffrey Dean Morgan is
if
great.
That's where they're moving is towards him. And she still watches it occasionally, but interesting. I thought that show would be dead a long time ago.
Should
Cool
have
that
been.
it's still going. Oh.
I'm not a
Hot
fan.
take from Casey.
I'm not a fan, okay? Vince, what have you been watching, my friend?
I've been on a documentary kick the last few days. I started McMillions on HBO. Have you guys heard of that one yet?
Mm-mm.
So remember the Monopoly craze with the McDonald's Monopoly craze from when we were kids? How exciting and fun that was. There is a story to be told there. I am 2 episodes in out of the 6-part documentary on HBO, and it's all about how pretty much the entire Monopoly competition was just completely stolen by the mob and a whole bunch of other people that were able to get the $1 million pieces and just give it to their friends, and everyone was claiming $1 million who didn't actually win it through legit measures, you know. And like, it's crazy, like the mob was involved, and I'm only on episode 2, and it's like it's interesting.
Crazy.
It's really cool to look into it. I heard they're gonna make an actual movie out of it too, like a scripted movie. But the documentary is crazy because they actually interview people who know the people that like were ripping off the company, who are cheating this competition, you know. And they're like family members of the mob. One guy was talking about his brother. He's like, yeah, my brother was like this mobster from this movie and this mobster from this movie put together. He was extremely violent and did violent things, but he did it all with a laugh and a smile. And they just like say it like it was nothing. And I'm just sitting over here like, who are these people? You know, it's weird. It's really weird.
Could you imagine that though? Like just being that whatever about things. I was wondering about that.
It's a good watch. Like I can't wait to finish the next 4 episodes. But I've also been listening to the what's it called? It's on Netflix. The one about hip hop evolution, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
It's anyway, it's all about the history of hip hop, and it starts like clear back in the day and moves forward. There's like 4 seasons of it. So I started listening to that one too. I haven't been like as heavily invested as I was in the McMillian stuff, but
yeah.
The history of hip hop's pretty cool. Like it goes back from the start, like turntable stuff, you know? It's really it's
dude, like classic. Have you ever like looked at like classic breakdancing like stuff on YouTube or anything like that?
They talk about it. Do you know where the verbiage of where the name breakdancing came from?
No.
It's from the original like the original, I don't want to say rappers, I don't know what they were. The original hip hop artists, right? Cuz the term breakdance comes from these guys would have their turntables, their records set up. And I could be getting this all wrong. I was kind of listening to this while I was like working and stuff. And so they have their 2 turntables up and they have one record on the left and one record on the right. And normally when they switch from song to song, there's like a break in the middle of the song where it kind of goes quiet. And these guys out in LA, I think it was New York, sorry. This guy came out with this idea in order to bridge that gap between songs. He would like play the records and stuff and clear so there was no break in music. And those guys that got into break dancing, that's where the dance would come from, is they would dance to the break music that he would create between the 2 songs. And so like it's that kind of stuff in the documentary they talk about. It's really cool.
That's way cool. I love that kind of stuff. Actually, like that segues perfectly into what I've been watching a lot this week. So I have been watching a ton of Ugly Delicious. As you guys know, who have been following us for a while, plus the 2 of you, I love to cook. I'm obsessed with it, actually. Had I chosen a better profession for my life, it probably would have been like I'm not going to lie to you, like a ramen cook. I would have just been the greatest ramen chef ever. Still could be if I want to, but
curry ramen.
It's good stuff from Ramen Nation.
Whatever ramen 320 or 360 or whatever that gets called,
like 930 or something.
Yeah, there's so many of them. It's crazy, but yeah, I love to cook, so I watched Ugly Delicious season 1 and 2. Then I listened to the Dave Chang show. I listened to about 10 hours of that, which is a podcast as well. Then I stepped up and I just watched everything YouTube had to offer on Matty Matheson during work. And boy, let me tell you, that guy is hilarious. I don't know if you guys have seen him on like Munchies, Vice, anything like that. That man is hilarious. Look him up. He is so funny. He's about
a chef or what?
He's a chef. He used to own a restaurant up in Toronto, I believe. or Vancouver, one of the two. But then he just kind of became an internet personality. But this guy is probably like, he's just a big guy. He calls himself Big Boy all the time. He's about 300 and some odd pounds, and he just goes around cooking. He's kind of like a humorous Bourdain with lots of tattoos. And so he's like way funny. And then my wife and I started rewatching Rick and Morty, which has been a riot, and I love Rick and Morty.
Did you see that? Did you see that Justin Roiland is coming out with a new show that's kind of looks to be a Rick and Morty kind of spin-off, but not official spin-off, I don't think. It's kind of the same animation, and it's him, so it's got to be the same humor. Look into it after the show. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Oh, I'm gonna check it out.
How many times have you been through Rick and Morty at this point?
About 12.
Really? Whoa.
Yeah, I
guess there's not that many episodes.
Well, I can sit down and I can quote like almost every episode if I'm watching it, like scene per scene, tit for tat, whatever you want to say. Like I just enjoy Rick and Morty so much. It's almost a pain. And then also I got my Bourdain fix this week as well, because like I've told you, I'm obsessed with that guy. And I watched he did a mini documentary series for a whiskey company out of Scotland, so it's kind of cool. Single malt Scotch whiskey, so it was cool. But yeah, that was.
I've noticed on your Instagram, it's a lot of talking food lately on your stories.
Well, I just have been like, I want to do something productive in my downtime at the house, and
it's a good thing to do.
Work has been like incredibly mentally taxing lately, just because like work from home is different for me than working from the office, and like I'm just not as good as working from home as a lot of people are. Let's just say that I get too distracted. So I decided that if I work for so long, I can do a little bit of cooking and a little bit of design. So right now I'm actually working on the Momofuku steamed pork buns from home.
Ooh.
And those are, if you've ever had them, any steamed pork buns are amazing. They're literally like little mini sliders, but they are like Dave Chang perfection, and they are wonderful.
You've been cooking and eating good. I've been over here eating like frozen chicken patties and
Vince, if you'll just drive by my house, I will put a plate out on the sidewalk, and you can just drive by, pick it up, and leave if you want.
Like a deer wandering onto your property.
If you really want to do that, just text me one of these times, and I will put a plate out for you on the sidewalk. These are trying times, but you shouldn't have to eat frozen foods all the time, Vince. Come to my house. Get warm foods.
I've got some meat. I've been making tacos lately. I'm not completely malnutritioned. Not completely.
I'm actually working on a Filipino-Mexican taco hybrid right now, so I'll tell more about that later. Also, mac and cheese without the cheese part in it.
Wait, you said... Oh, sorry. Never mind. Keep going. I thought you said something else.
What?
But you said more about that later? Like you have it planned into the episode of the podcast to talk about...
No, I'll talk about that on another podcast when I have it perfected. But right now I'm also working on a coconut milk mac and cheese that tastes just like mac and cheese for those people who are dairy free.
That sounds good.
Or vegetarian, vegan, whatever you are. And you're like, ew, milk. Or for instance, if you're lactose intolerant, still got to have that good mac and cheese life, even if it's not real cheese.
There you go.
So yeah, that's essentially it. We've talked so much about what we've been watching and so on.
What we've been eating.
What we've been eating. Eating is important. Feed yourselves. And when we're done with this quarantine stuff, go to your favorite local restaurants. Support the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Like seriously, those guys are being hit way hard. But if you live near me, I'm not going to tell you the name of the restaurant because I don't need to pinpoint where my house is. But if you live near me and you go to any sort of Asian restaurant that's open, give all those folks not a high five, but obviously an air five because they deserve it. Like they're working way hard. But yeah, let's dive into this episode. This is one that I've been wanting to chat about for a while. It's a 2019 film. It's starring Timothée Chalamet. Is that how you say it? Everyone's internet boyfriend these days. It's called The King, and it is freaking amazing in my opinion. What do you guys? Do you guys have any fun facts about it or thoughts about it?
Here, and then we can jump into our initial reactions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, directed by David Michaud, written by Joel Edgerton and also David Michaud, released November 1st, 2019. I don't know what the budget for, nor do I know what the gross was for this movie. Netflix is very secretive about the success and the amount of like hits that their in-house stuff gets.
Yeah.
So I really have no idea when it
I
comes to how
actually
much it
have
costs or
an
anything.
estimated budget for you.
Oh, perfect.
23 million.
23 million. Who knows if it made them money?
Yeah, it was on. I can't remember. I didn't put it on here, but it was on the
That's not a big
internet.
deal. Cool.
So
Rotten Tomatoes gave it a critic score of 71% and an audience score of 83%, and IMDb gave it a 7.3. Movie is starring Timothée Chalamet as Henry. I think his real name was or his middle name was Hal, the fifth. Joel Edgerton as Falstaff, Ben Mendelsohn as Henry IV, Robert Pattinson as King Louis, or Prince Louis, right? Who was the Dauphin of France.
The Dauphin of France.
And Sean Harris as William. He was the like shady advisor guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He just sounded shady. The way he talked, he was always kind of whispering, and he has
My
that
lord,
voice. My lord,
let me
I don't
help
know.
you.
He was.
You must go to war with France.
I've seen him in. I saw him in something else. I can't remember
He's in
what
Mission
the name of the movie was.
Impossible.
Oh, is that what I know him from?
Yeah, he's the bad people from Mission Impossible.
Yeah, I don't really like him that much. I didn't like the way he talks and stuff. I wasn't into it.
He's talented. I think
He
he's
is
amazing. But that's just me.
It's just the way he spoke. I was just kind of like, you're a skeezy little man, aren't you? It's probably the character I didn't like. Probably not him. Just
and so that was like, so obviously with the whole British accent and the French accents and everything like that, it was a huge part of the movie. And so I will say that even though he was French and obviously he should have sounded like that, when Robert Pattinson started talking, I was like, what is happening? Like, this is so weird. And I know that English is ugly, and I think that France is pretty, but the way that Robert Pattinson spoke French, and also French English was not pretty.
Well, actually, I
was
have
not
some thoughts on this, and actually, I did some research on this to kind of figure out why they were speaking like a different form of like British English than we were accustomed to, and the French seem to be different. And that's because they are mirroring either the 14th century or 15th century French and English of the time. And so it's supposed to be different and uglier. It's not the French we know, nor is it the English we know, because it was different times. Like if you think about it too, like think about like when people say like, and don't quote me on this, like I've read about it a little bit, but like our English is a lot more true to what the British's English might have been around the time like the Americas were settled. Same with like the French in Canada is more true to the Canadian that was spoken around the time like French Canada was, settled to France. So it's kind of an interesting thing, but he's supposed to kind of have like a weird different French style, and same with the British.
Is Robert Pattinson British?
British.
Okay, I thought so. All right, casting considerations. The only thing I found was that the director, David Michaud, and I'm probably butchering his name too, but anyway, the only thing I found was that he actually had Timothée Chalamet in mind for the role when he was writing it. So fortunately for him, Chalamet was also very keen to work with him.
Have you seen the pictures of what actually like Henry V looked like?
No, isn't there only one? I thought I read there was only one photo of him. It's like real life photo, and he has like a weird bowl cut or something.
Yeah, it's like a painting of him, but let me pull it up here. But literally that's what they inspired
the haircut style.
The haircut with. So
man, it's really weird those this is funny after the last episode we did how I nerded out about their hair so much, but it's weird to see when they have those haircuts. It's like the back of their hair is cut too high or something.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice? I don't know.
Here, look at this photo.
It's just like it's like flat all around.
Oh yeah, I've seen that photo. Yeah, like look how high up that is. That's not a bowl cut. I mean, that's like an extreme bowl cut, I guess.
I'm kind of down to get that cut personally. I might actually invest in it.
I sported the bowl cut for years and years when I was a kid. So.
Oh, me too, for sure.
Yep.
Oh, I love that kind of thing. As far as it goes, like that style of haircut, I should get it. I'm gonna go back. No, I'm kidding.
Don't do it. Don't. Please no.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, to start out kind of our initial reactions, I just want to read one thing I found. It said that the screenplay for this movie was partially inspired by the plays about Henry V written by William Shakespeare and partially inspired by real life events. So it's part history, part fiction. What did you guys think of the movie?
It's good.
I want to hear you guys' thoughts because I really like this actually a lot.
I like this movie, and I'm not super huge into history, but from Shakespeare and stuff, there's always like a little bit that you know the story, like the parts that are real and the parts that are false, you know? And so I don't know too much about Henry V, and so I'm not going to lie, going into it, I had no clue that it was meant to be sort of like, even though there was a lot of false stuff, like sort of be like about history, about the actual King of England. I just saw the king and there's Robert Pattinson and Timothée Chalamet, and I thought it was just going to be like two opposing kings fighting each other, just like an original story, you know? I had no clue it was meant to be so much about history and everything like that. And I enjoyed it. Obviously, I was caught off guard by that, but it was good and I liked it, and they did a really good job portraying the different things. The acting was stellar, of course, very good. I was definitely like, I felt a lot of times the flow of the story was kind of strange at times because I understood why I went from thing to thing, but it felt very like jumpy to me. But like overall, definitely was enjoyable.
Nice. What about you, Vince?
I have friends that at work who have not seen the entire library of the Marvel movies. And then we went and we saw Endgame as a company. And I remember asking them, like, I want to know what you think as an outsider just jumping into this movie, whether or not you like it or not. This is how I felt going into The King. I was exactly like you, Josh. I had no idea this was based in history. I thought it was an original story. I don't know history at all. I'm terrible when it comes to history. So I felt like my friends who've never seen a Marvel movie going into Endgame, where I'm just like, what is happening? Who are these people? I know the name of King Henry, and then like what's his name? John Falstaff comes up, and I'm like, oh, is that supposed to be like Little John? Like, that's how confused and like ignorant I am when it comes to history. I'm just like, is this a Robin Hood story? And I was lost, and I felt stupid, and I felt even stupider as it kept going until I finally realized that it's actually based in history. And then the movie ended, and I did a bunch of research and actually learned about this kind of stuff. And I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I got bored in it. And it made me want to watch Game of Thrones. Like about 40 minutes into it, I was like, I don't know who any of these people are. I am not feeling attached to anybody. Why did Tommen die off? Well, sorry, that's probably spoiler. I just felt like by the end of the movie, I was glad that I stuck through it. But I did pick up my computer and start working on a couple of things about 40-minute mark. And then once they started like getting out into the battlefields and stuff, I was like, oh, this is getting pretty interesting. And once I kind of learned who the characters were, I was like, oh, this is cool. But it is really well done, and it's really beautifully shot. And I loved the realism to it all. Like I said, it made me want to watch Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones has that giant fantasy element and these cool sword fights, and this just like Star Wars in a fantasy setting, you know.
And it has Tommen. Oh, I mean Thomas.
Yeah, I know, right?
And that's his name in real life.
But I did love I loved the realism. I loved how the armor looked heavy. Like it looked like Game of Thrones, everything's so fitted and everyone looks like they can move so like easily. And seeing these soldiers in this movie with these big old heavy armor sets and everything trying to move around, it's just like, oh, that's cool. And like where they stab each other and how it's like, I don't know. I loved how real it felt, but at the same time, I felt like, it was just it was good. I didn't love it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch a fantasy instead of a historically accurate thing, but I really did like it.
A lot of people have issues with like timepiece sets, like films or series, because there's like, it's hard to understand because they're based off of potentially real characters. But yeah, I can feel you on that one. So I love this film, and I thought this is, like I've said this before in one of our other podcasts, is that this is my new favorite like medieval film about war and like battle and like the battles between like England and France and England and their kind of like enemies. And so I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought like Chalamet did really good. I thought the guy who played Falstad, I thought he was a great character. He's a great actor. He's from New South Wales, so meaning he's Australian, which was really cool. And then I thought that kind of the way they assembled the world of it and kind of made England kind of old and kind of portrayed like the idea of royalty and kind of like being, I don't know if you want to call it the outcast son of a king and kind of like coming into your own. It was really well done, and I enjoyed it a lot. The battle in this, like the main battle, is amazing, and it is just so well shot, so well put together, and kind of the dialogue in this is amazing. And I really love, there's one speech that we'll talk about obviously that really kind of like, I stood up with excitement the first time I saw it, and then I did it again. I had that adrenaline rush, and I was like, yes, I want to defend England, and I'm not even British, so
for England. For England.
Exactly. I was like, man, what am I becoming? But I loved it. I enjoyed it so much, and I that's why I'm glad that we decided to do this one. So yeah, like, should we
It reminded me one last thing. It reminded me a lot of being younger, living at my parents' house still. This seems like a movie that my mom would love. She loves this historically accurate stuff. So it did kind of make me, reminded me of those times of walking in the room being like, what's this? And then sitting down and being like, all right, I can give this a chance, kind of a thing. It's good.
You're like, this isn't so bad. This isn't so bad. Yeah, this is one most definitely that, like, if it had came out when I was a teenager, I would have watched it in my parents' basement. I would have stood up and been fake sword fighting. Like, this is the type of film that, like, I would have gotten my cousin to watch with me, and then for us to go replay it out at the farm type thing. Like,
yeah.
Like, even as young adults almost. But I don't know, Josh, any other thoughts before we move into spoiler-free territory?
Yeah, so I would basically just say I would still definitely recommend it to everyone. Like, be prepared for a more historical piece, but it'll definitely be good, and it'll be worth your time to sort of come in knowing what you're getting into for sure. So
yeah, beware. This isn't like gonna be outlandish like Michael Bay screen flares and explosions and all of that. It is like a really quality film. Like, I don't feel like they went cheap on anything, and like it like everything tells the story it needs to. So I personally, like, with what they did, hit me. It was perfect. Like I said, this is like one of my favorite war movies now. So yeah, I don't know. That's our spoiler-free review. Is that it? Do we want to talk about anything else spoiler-free? Do we want to dive into them spoiler zones?
Spoilers.
Put on your rain jackets because you're in the splash zone now, everyone. Spoiler area. All right. Well, let's kind of get into this. Like, so what did you guys think about that? Like, I guess, like, now that you can talk spoilers, is there something you guys want to bring up, or like anything that you were like, that was kind of surprising about this, or like, I don't know.
I don't know if this is jumping too far, but I was surprised, especially with how just kind of direct and how historical and how plot by plot this movie was, that at the very end it was like, oh, there's a twist, like, surprise. It was this other guy who did it. Like, he was the one who plotted this whole thing, and he's going to get destroyed. And so I thought that was like interesting and definitely caught me off guard, because especially after watching the whole movie that goes like plot point to plot point to plot point, it was very surprising to see a very like classic normal movie element of a twist in the story that I didn't see coming by any means.
So this is my biggest problem with the movie, having researched it after the movie ended.
Okay.
Like, the movie ended, I was like, that was pretty good. I liked that twist. I liked the lesson that King Henry kind of learned. I liked that he went from this peaceful king to learning that sometimes you have to do violence, to learning that you can't really trust everyone, and ending up with this, princess who is going to make him a better man. I was like, that's cool. That's a really cool cinematic story. My problem comes with after, when I started researching the movie and the actual history of it all. And this is the most like accurate movie I think I've ever looked into.
Yeah. Well, when you say that, what do you mean about like the inaccuracies? Because that's like a very key thing here that I was actually going to bring up, is like, this film has a ton of inaccuracies. There's a lot of like you said, there's a lot of accurate things and a lot of truth to it, but there's also a lot that is totally Hollywood. Let's put some makeup on it, and let's make it a little bit beyond.
Exactly. And I've got a list of those things here that we can kind of go through if you want to. I don't want to start this on a down note because like I think that the sacrifices that they made for the movie like made it a better movie for the most part, you know. Like if they would have stuck with exactly the history of what happened, I don't think you would like King Henry as much as you do in this movie, because they make him, like I said, they make him out to be this peaceful king who cares about his people, who wants the best, who doesn't want to fight, when that's really not who King Henry was, as far as I know after my research. Like for example, him not wanting to go to war with France, that's a complete fallacy. Like he wanted to go to France before his dad he wanted to go to war with France before his dad even died. And then his like relationship with his dad isn't entirely accurate either. He wasn't womanizing and partying his whole life. No one really knows what he was actually doing, but Shakespeare kind of made that up, and this is loosely based on Shakespeare's play, right? So
Yeah,
he was actually, according to history or whatever, he was actually fighting in his father's wars alongside his father. So it's like little things like that I'm just like, I mean, that kind of sucks if you're going for historical accuracy. But like I said, like it makes for a good movie to watch this guy learn his lessons.
I definitely heard basically the same things. The only thing that they said that was like kind of good is that even though as far as who was peaceful and who kind of wanted to go to war was a bit wrong, they did say that just the relationship, while they still had more of a loving relationship than the movie showed, it was like really tense a lot of times and strenuous. And there was like no real like, so his brother Thomas was a real person, but Thomas was never like actually in line or set to receive the throne or anything like that. Like it was always going to be Hal, it was always going to be Henry. And he did have like a stressed and kind of like tight relationship with his dad. Not tight, but how do you say, like tension? Like it was kind of tense.
a tense one.
Contentious, I don't know. But they're still father and son, kind of just like a stressful relationship between dad and son is how people described it.
Yeah. But I did like watching his transformation throughout the movie, of learning that being king and making these decisions is not as easy as it looks from the outside. You know, once you get in. I'm reading this book. It's really good, and it kind of reminded me of this chapter that I read last night. The book is called Dark Age. It's in the Red Rising series, if any of you guys have heard about it. One of the characters, she is basically like the president of the universe, because it's a big sci-fi book. And in the book in the chapter last night, she says something along the lines of, the day that I became sovereign was the day that I became the most lonely person in the world. And I kind of feel like it's the same, you know, like you look at being a ruler and you look at it as like, oh, I have every need tended to me, and I make all these decisions and I'll do the right thing every time. And then once you get into that place where you have the ultimate say in things, it's the most lonely, stressful, hard job you'll ever have. And I feel like he kind of learned his lesson through that, throughout the movie.
Well, I thought that this was kind of like, the way that I saw it was, you know how we kind of joke about those teenage coming of age comedies like McLovin or like one of those. I felt like this was a more serious type of version of that, of kind of like becoming an adult, like stepping into your own and finding your place, right? And kind of having to grow up, and like each of us, like most people, have been burned at one point in time by someone who they thought was a friend or somebody who they looked at as like a trusted advisor, and then something happens, and you're just like, shoot, that was freaking terrible, and that sucks, and there are repercussions to that now. And that's exactly kind of the story, is like we like in the film, right? You're introduced to him as kind of like this playboy who kind of shows up when he's summoned and forced to be there, who also like makes decisions against other people's desires and wills, and kind of says, well, this is the better idea for it. And, you know, then he becomes king, and then he has advisors who are advising him to do things, and he's kind of like, I don't know. And then in the end, right, like the big twist is we find out his advisor was not entirely truthful. But sometimes, like, to be honest with you, it really proved the point that you got to look out for number one, which is you, and kind of make those decisions based around it. And I felt like this was kind of more of like, not like that coming of age, like where you're going from like high school kid to like going to college. This was more like you're graduating college, you suddenly have payments, life is hitting you, and boom, you have responsibilities. And it was kind of
And now you're in a war with France.
Yeah. Meanwhile, everyone's calling you a child.
yeah.
So,
Well, everyone's like, damn millennials. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was kind of like my like really like kind of like take on what you're saying is, yeah, like he learned a really hard lesson from that. So I don't really know. Maybe I'm just kind of up in the night about that, but that's the way I
it's
perceived it.
100%. Yeah, that it really is. It is. He's learning how to be king. He's learning how to rule. He's learning how to be a warrior king, right?
Yeah. What do you guys?
I
Sorry.
have one question, and I didn't quite get it. Who were the two guys he beheaded in the movie, and why did he do that?
So they were
I missed that too.
noblemen who he thought should have came to him and kind of told him instead of going to his advisor. One of them was a cousin,
Oh,
and another was just someone who,
yeah.
like,
I remember that he was friends with the one. He gave
Mhm.
the bird, right? The mechanical bird to him, but I missed why he was beheading them.
Essentially, it's because of treason. I think him proving a point that you should come to me for issues and not just kind of
Okay.
sneak around type thing. Like he was trying to prove a
Uh,
point that I have power.
Gotcha. I have to call out the violence in this movie. Again, going back to the realism. Wow. That it's hard to watch those kind of things like that when they beheaded those two guys and how quiet it was and
Yeah.
how just not over dramatized, but at the same time so unnerving it was whenever these violent things happened. Like going back to the realism of things and not seeing like a big burst of blood or something, just hearing that like chop of the wood. It was unnerving. It was really well done. Like I kind of felt like I was there watching this instead of watching, enjoying the overblown glory, like you do in some of these movies. It was just like, oh, cringy, like, oh, I didn't like that. Also with when he stabs his advisor at the end, when he stabs him in the back of the head and you just hear a thump instead of like a big gushy sound, it's just kind of a thunk and the guy drops. It's just like,
Yeah.
Ooh.
Some deep back into the skull action
There
there.
was definitely a lot of moments like that where I was just surprised by the realism and by how much it would show. Like when they beheaded the one dude and it just like showed it, and I was, like, wow, because I was watching it with my wife and we were both just watching, and the guy was going up to do it, and then it cut down to the guy and you could just see his head kind of sitting there like waiting, and you're like, okay, it's gonna show the thing coming, and then pan to like a far shot and just show it rolling away, or just pan somewhere else and people are cringing, but nope, just and his head falls off and you're just, okay, like, alrighty, like that's
Like
as
the
real
guy
as it gets.
shaking and quivering like in preparation, like the breathing, everything in this, like as far as like that goes. And like let's jump forward a little bit. Like since we're talking about the realism of this film, there's a major war which is like, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's the war of like Agincourt, I think is how they say it. Like, and this is an actual historical battle that happened. The actual battle that happened in the movie is not quite true to what happened, but there's a part in it where they're kind of like they're talking about this and like, hey, we're gonna fight and we're gonna fight in this marsh essentially that happens. And when they're fighting, there's this vanguard down there, right? These men at arms are down there, and they're wearing this heavy armor, like Vince talked about. It's just like, and the horses come through, and they're just making this a mud pit, and like people are down there fighting on the ground, and they're getting suffocated in the mud. They're showing like these scenes where people are just, instead of like stabbing them with swords or with knives, like think about it, you're wearing 60 to 100 pounds of armor. Just suffocate someone, just smother them, bury them in water, mud, whatever you can is essentially what we're seeing here. Isn't that so crazy how they showed that?
It
And they're just
reminds me
kind
of it reminded me of the Battle of the Bastards from, again, Game of Thrones. Like I said,
well,
watching
kind of
these
one of the
guys fight,
shots
I
was
wanna
the
watch Game of
same,
Thrones.
wasn't it? Like they do a
Uh-huh.
shot from above, and it was like, oh man, the
Watch
Battle
him
of the
try to just
Bastards.
get above the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching him try to get above the crowd as everyone's just kind of pushing together. I loved this battle. And I've got some facts about the actual battle itself, because this was the most interesting thing to me. It wasn't the life of Henry, anything like that. It was the Battle of Agincourt that I was just like enthralled by. Like you said, it wasn't entirely accurate, but it was based in some realism, like the muddy marshes. The battle Henry only had around 5,000 people in his army, and the French had between 30 and 100,000 people coming at them. Like, their army was about a fifth the size of the French army coming to them. So that's why, in the movie you see that guy who was just like freaking out, like, we cannot win this battle. We need to get out of there. We need to get out of here. They said that they're not really sure if it actually rained that night or not, but the mud where it was already turned up from farming and stuff. And so they knew it was going to be a big muddy battlefield kind of area. And so they kind of had planned that out. Yeah. It wasn't as they kind of said, I listened to this guy who's kind of like a historian who kind of like knows more in depth of how this actual battle went down. And he said that it wouldn't have been as like muddy and slippery as it showed in the movie, but it makes for like good, entertaining movies for that. Or, Hollywood cinema for that. But he did say that it would be like a big, muddy, deep bog. Like I said, because all the mud is turned up and stuff like that. And it would have been slick, and it would have been like, sinking into these things in the heavy armor and that kind of stuff. The biggest difference from the real battle and the battle shown in the movie is the archers actually played a way more prominent role in the battle. 4/5, I think is what they said, of King Henry's army was archers during this battle. And the whole idea was, as the French armies were pushing towards them, they were being like directed into this small like funnel up to his army. And so he just had hundreds and hundreds of archers sitting there just shooting arrows straight at them as they were kind of trudging through this deep bog. And so by the time they actually reached the English army, they were already exhausted from wearing this heavy armor, from trudging through all this nasty mud. They were slipping, they were falling down, and you had, 30 to 100,000 people pushing forward. So like you said, if one person fell down, there's tens of thousands of people walking over the top of you. They said a ton of the people in that army died from like being trampled or drowning in the mud or being shot by an arrow before they even got to the actual battle itself, And then the archers, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but the archers, they sat. In the movie, it shows King Henry and all of his guys were hiding in the forest, and at the right moment, they jumped out and surprised the French and killed them all. Yeah. That's not how it happened in the actual battle. In the actual battle, the archers were standing up against the forest line, and so their horses and all the cavalry couldn't get around behind the archers. And then the archers had in front of them pikes that were sticking up towards the battle, so that when the French actually got to them across the muddy gorge, they had to like navigate their way through these big pikes, and the horses couldn't run up straight through it. And so they're just standing back there and just shooting arrows and arrows and arrows into all these people. Meanwhile, people are getting trampled and killed. It's a really interesting battle.
Which is crazy they didn't show that in this film, in my opinion. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Like for me, like I'm a huge, like I love the history of England. I even took 3 classes in my like first couple of years at like the junior college I attended on the history of England. I took history of England 1, 2, and 3. Like I'm very fascinated by this. Cool. And what's kind of like craziest to me, and sorry to kind of just like jump in, Josh.
No, that's everything.
I hope it's all good, guys. But like what's craziest to me is that the way that they kind of like made the military decisions here. Okay, like some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, right? Type thing. But it's just such a beautiful thing. I actually have the speech, like a quick, like 30-second clip of this that I kind of want to play. Like this is the speech that they show, like Hal making, or King Henry V making, like right before he sends everyone into war. And I think it's so awesome. So let me kind of crank up the volume here on this old phone of mine. But like, listen to how like impressive this is. It's such a awesome thing. Like, listen to, but listen. So this is what like got me like feeling like, man, I gotta fight for England. So kind of listen to this. This is so impressive.
What matters is that you know in your hearts that today you are that kingdom united. You are England. Each and every one of you. England is you, and it is the space between you. Fight not for yourselves. Fight for that space. Fill that space. Make it tissue. Make it mass! Make it impenetrable! Make it yours! Make it England! Make it England!
Like I was right, like that's amazing, and it's so good, and like Timothée Chalamet delivers. Like this is like I feel like this is he's already got some great roles behind him, but damn, this is a defining role. Like that's how I feel about this. It's like this is a role like Kevin Costner in the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, defining role.
Val
Timothée
Kilmer
Chalamet
in
this?
Willow, defining role.
Exactly. Timothée Chalamet in this movie, defining role. That's all I gotta say. Like, guys, like it's amazing. Like, I love that.
Amen.
Yeah, and go ahead.
That was it. Just amen. Like,
and I just wanted to say, the battle may not have been historically accurate. It would have been cool to see all that kind of stuff. It's still really cool to see what they did. And like you said, Timothée Chalamet, he did great in it. His battle scenes in that, or his fight scene in that muddy, gross mess, running around with his hammer, like just trying to survive. And also the fight scene where he has the one-on-one fight, where you're expecting this really impressive like sword fight, but it's like them falling it down and just kind of turns into like a brawl.
Yeah.
Again, going with that realism of just like, it wouldn't be this fancy Game of Thrones sword fight. They hit each other with their swords and then they rolled around and just started bashing each other over the head. Like that dedication to realism was really impressive to me.
And the music also plays a big part in that, because the music was very, especially during the battle scenes, was very minimal. It was very like minimal. It was very simplistic. And especially in that one-on-one scene, I remember that there was next to no music, so that the clumsiness and everything was very apparent, because like obviously if you're in a big battle, whether it's Game of Thrones or something else, there's not actually going to be that ginormous orchestra playing behind you as you're slaying these beasts. It's just going to be the clanging of swords, people falling and drowning and stuff. And so I thought that it was really good, but then at other times the music showed up big. I definitely noticed the music throughout the movie, and it was really cool.
What did you guys think about the sword play and kind of that, like, have you ever wondered, like, how like Hollywood always makes these, like, Vince, you kind of referenced this with like Game of Thrones, like these beautiful, like all the time, like, oh, and this is like, a good reference to like what Robert Pattinson's character kind of did, the Dupont or whatever his name was from France.
King Louis.
Sorry, what?
King Louis
or whoever he was. This is kind of
prince. He was a prince.
Yeah, he was a prince. He wasn't the king, but this is kind of like funny. Like he gets off his horse and he does kind of like this, like beautiful like move. But through the rest of the film and like what everyone else is doing is very like slow moves. They're holding the edges of their swords, like the blades, and just hitting people with like the T-bars on their swords and like all of this stuff. And it's just like kind of like that seems pretty real actually, because those swords are heavy. Like these are iron swords, and then they're doing what they can with them, like in close quarters, like when they're running through the forest. Like I thought it was really well done. What did you guys think of the siege when they first crossed the sea? How did you guys like that, where they have the big trebuchets just launching in and sieging? Like
it was so pretty. That night scene where it just like would spin up and the fire would kind of like, the wind would kind of make that fire like light up and then it would fly across the thing. You just see the big explosion up against the side of the castle. It was very, very visually pleasing.
Yeah.
They definitely had a lot of gorgeous shots. That one, along with the end of the battle that they show both at the very beginning of the movie and then after the battle actually happens itself, where you've got that sunset in the background and Timothée Chalamet's in the foreground, but he's just walking amongst the bodies, and it's just gorgeously shot. There's so much of the cinematography in this movie that helps you feel that old time feeling and help it like seem real and really put you into that century, but at the same time making it so, like Vince said, so aesthetically pleasing, so just gorgeous to look at, and just an amazing. There were very few shots in this movie that were not just spectacular. I loved it.
I think that's what I like the most about the movie. I felt like it was very slow moving, and like I said, I didn't connect with the characters a lot, but every time I looked at the screen, I was just like, whoever shot this, it looks good. I mean, it's a little bit dark and drab at some points, like not a lot of like bright colors and stuff, but I assume that's kind of what it was like back then. I don't quote me on that, but like I don't know, just some of the shots that they had on there, I was just like, whoever did this knows how to run a camera, knows how to set up their shots. They know what they're doing. It's
What do you guys
pretty.
think of the costumes? Like when you're talking about I thought the costumes were cheesy, but they were very like beautiful and very like intricate.
Thomas's stood out one of the most to me. That big red breastplate with the big like shoulder armor going over the top, and then also Prince Louis,
Mhm.
his big old black costume with his sorry, I'll get to that in a second. King Louis's armor was awesome. The big old black thing with the big old like visor that goes over the top.
Mhm.
But what's Joel Edgerton's character's name again? Falstaff.
Yeah.
He had the freaking coolest helmet out of everybody's. It's like when he put the cover down, it looked like little like notches across where his eyes go.
Mhm.
It looked freaking rad.
Yeah. His was from a different era of war, which is super cool too. I love that. I thought the costume like in this was really good, especially like when you see him like how the first of the movie kind of what he was wearing, kind of the way he moved and walked and stuff like that. And then his progression to becoming a king and like the type of clothes he had to wear for that, which changed, like he had to change personally and personality wise, but also like his attire, like him sitting in the courtroom and like hearing like the priest like talk about, or the bishop talk about all that stuff. And he's like, I'm sitting under this really hot blanket type thing and bored out of my mind, a little bit sleepy, but what does this have to mean? But it's just like all the costumes were so kind of like, I loved them. I thought they were really weird, and it kind of like emulated some of the goofy British attire of the day that we go to London to see as tourists. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you ever watched Parliament from like on TV, like kind of what they wear in Parliament at times? It's a little cheesy.
Yeah, that scene with the king when Henry walks into the room and everyone's in those weird red gowns and stuff is like, style is very different back then.
I'm hoping to bring some of that back. No, just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, guys, do you guys have any kind of like favorite moments or lines from this film?
I definitely liked the scenes where Robert Pattinson and Timothée Chalamet were like confronting each other and talking to each other, because they were two very different people, two very different characters, but they were both amazing, you know, and that's where like the acting like powerhouses come through, right? I mean, a big drawing point for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, to this movie was you've got Timothée Chalamet and Robert Pattinson. They're like opposing leaders that they're going to battle. It's going to be dope. And I'm like, oh, that could be awesome. And I'm like, but it's a battle, so who knows if they'll really have that face-to-face time where they can play off each other and be great actors. They did. They had it a lot. They were great actors. So I think a lot, if not all of their scenes where they were face-to-face, probably made the movie, for me, like my favorite parts of the movie.
Did you expect more Pattinson in this film, guys?
I did. I thought it was like, I guess maybe I didn't see the trailers right, but I thought it was supposed to be, it was about Timothée Chalamet, but I thought it was really going to be so much of a dueling sort of thing between them. And so when it was just Chalamet, and then like you're halfway into the film and Pattinson shows up, I was like, oh, this is weird. Like I definitely thought it was going to be more Pattinson, but I think it was, for the story they were telling, I think it was the right balance.
Yeah.
I did not expect more of him because I didn't even know he was in the movie until he showed up. I didn't watch a trailer for this. I just jumped in and went. And that's why I think I was so like lost at the beginning, is my ignorance when it comes to history and not knowing what the movie was actually even about. I didn't even know it was about King Henry until 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, because you were
Just
saying,
kidding, not
right,
40
that you
minutes.
kind of thought that this was like a original film, right? Like,
Yeah, I
original story.
I had no idea. Yeah, I thought it was something that someone made up.
Cool. Yeah, I understand that. I got my one favorite scene in this, and then if you guys have anything else, we can kind of go into that, or else we can kind of cut this off here. But one of my favorite actual like scenes in this movie is not like anything great or grand that we saw, but it was after the very first kind of combat, that one-on-one combat that Hal challenges the other guy to, the rebel to. The after effects of it, when Hal's kind of like sitting there and he's kind of like in pain and he's just kind of like dealing with the fact that he just killed someone, and like Falstaff comes in, and he's like, you know, like, hey, like, you know, like, where is it? Right. He's like, war is bloody and soulless. And he kind of talks about it. Where he's like, you know, the pain of death, like it's a heavy burden to bear. And, you know, Hal's just kind of like, get away, old man, get away. Like, kind of like, get out of here. Stop talking. And Falstaff is like, I will never stop talking. Right. Like he kind of like, I will never stop supporting you type thing. And like that film, I thought that was a really cool film, especially now, like I kind of relating it to kind of what a lot of folks are going through right now, being socially isolated and distanced from other people. Like I personally use work to get my social time in because I come home and I just gel the freak out. I don't know if you guys are experiencing this, but like now, like when we're not around all of the people that we're normally so close to, it's kind of like, it's kind of a lonely feeling. And I'm not saying that us having to socially isolate and distance ourselves from people is like killing someone, right? But it kind of like is a pain that we must bear. And so it was something that like really hit me hard watching it this time, like more so than last time, because maybe I was in a different mindset. Like that was a cool scene and I was glad he was there to support him. But it's just like one thing that I thought about this time was like, be there for your friends, like reach out to people who you normally wouldn't reach out to, and just kind of bear the burden of kind of like the pain that they have to bear, because a lot of folks, like their social interaction time is totally based on work. But also, what a beautiful scene. Sorry to bring it like all the way over here and then back, but what a beautiful scene and what a beautiful message that like the decisions we have to make and the people sometimes we have to kill, or the, you know, the life changes we have to make to get to where we need to be, like those are hard, and people are there to support us along the way of those hard decisions.
I think Falstaff was probably my favorite character in the movie, which is interesting because he's like one of the only characters in the entire movie that's not based on a real person. He was made up character in Shakespeare's original play.
Yeah.
But man, did they write him well. He's really cool. I really liked him. I just have one last question, unless you guys have anything else you want to bring up.
Nope.
What's your question?
This is for you, Casey. Would you rather rewatch this, or I guess which one do you prefer, this or Willow?
This. I'm really sorry. I love Willow, but I just like this a lot more. Like, okay, like here's like the part of me that is like, I love fantasy. I love action. I love adventure. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Game of Thrones. Like those are my jams. Willow, my jam. Kroll, my jam. But this is such a beautifully shot film, and it's not like there's no special effects that don't seem unreal to me. Like everything in this film, like seems like something I could walk down the street and see. Beheadings, probably. Like fighting with the big heavy sword like that, probably. Being tired, sweaty, and weighed down by armor, probably. Getting in a fight and falling on the ground, oh yeah, that happens. You know, all these things could happen, but it was just so beautifully told without like over extravagance that I couldn't complain about this film. Like this film has its shortcomings because it's not as factual as everyone liked to think, but boy, oh boy, I loved it.
What about you, Josh? Willow or this?
This, for sure.
That surprises me. You loved Willow.
I did not love Willow. Do you not remember? Oh, you're messing with me. I was like, what? Like, I don't remember this. There was another one which I didn't love, but I at least like recently. I don't remember which one that one was, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Yeah. That one I was like, I'm gonna hate this, and then I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Willow, I was like, I'm not gonna like this, and then I was like, I didn't like this. Like, it wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be, but I didn't like this. No, this one was definitely different from what I thought it was gonna be, but it was also definitely amazing the way it was shot, and it was really good. Definitely like. Not now having seen it. It came out last year, right, Casey?
November 1st.
November 1st, 2019. Having seen it, like sadly, sorry, Casey, it would definitely not make my top 10 of the year list. However,
that's okay.
I still did love it. I don't think it made yours though either, did it? Or did you see it before we did that episode?
I did not see it before we saw this episode. I first watched this in 2020, so. Would
you put it on your list, do you think? Top 10 movies of 2019. Would The King make it?
I don't know, because I haven't thought about that. Like, it is my favorite movie I've seen this year. Well, Vince, which would you watch, Willow or this? Because you don't really love Willow. Your wife's family loves Willow, but you don't really like Willow.
Exactly. I felt like Willow is more fun and make fun of it entertaining, and this is more of a that was really well done. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again kind of a movie. So I'd probably rewatch Willow because Hope would love to rewatch Willow, and I like to laugh and make fun of Willow. So I think I'd probably watch Willow again before I watch this one.
Damn.
Sorry.
Cold. But also good for Willow. It needed a vote here.
I know, for a movie I don't really like.
And I love Willow, so it's kind of one of those things. All right, well, anything else before we go? Any last thoughts?
I got a couple of last fun facts, just real quick. The French king was really going crazy in real life and believed he was made of glass and was scared that he was going to break. That's an interesting thing. Henry, if you notice, Timothée Chalamet's character has a scar on one side of his face. That's historically King Henry took an arrow to the face, and they actually had to invent a new tool in order to get the arrow out of it. So it was portraying that. And then the last thing, Timothée Chalamet said that his funniest memory from filming the movie was seeing Robert Pattinson vaping on set in full armor and makeup.
Vaping on set in full armor and makeup. Just imagine you're an actor on this historical time period movie, and someone's pulling out a vape. I bet Pattinson can blow some sweet smoke rings.
Gandalf style.
The ship.
So I guess my final thoughts. Cool movie, really visually pleasing. Not a movie for me, but it sent me on a trip of studying history that I would not have gone on having not watched the movie. So I am appreciative of what the movie has done for me and the little bit of information that I actually learned. A little bit of history that I actually learned about.
This is probably doing the research afterwards like Vince as well. I didn't do as much as Vince, but doing the research afterwards is probably the most history I've learned, like probably more than the last possibly 6-7 years combined. So
yeah, me too. Honestly, me too.
Really? Guys, I am so glad we watched this. This is one where I'm like, thank you for humoring me, to be honest with you, because I loved it. It was great. So yeah, I loved it. And I think more people should watch this and kind of like taking the lesson from the two of you. Like, I know not everyone in the world is really keen on history or that's kind of their jam. But if you want to like really enjoy this film, I would say watch the preview for it. There's a couple of YouTube videos that kind of give a little bit of an outline of the film without giving away too many spoilers, which is kind of nice. Also, there's a couple of like sites that do the same thing. But otherwise, like, if you go in and watch this film, go ahead and watch it as if it wasn't a real story either, because it's based around fact and also lies. So this is a movie that's everything. So I don't know. I enjoyed it, and so thank you for humoring me again.
Sorry,
thanks for recommending it.
To go off of your thought there, it's almost like a game of telephone where you've got the real events happened, and then Shakespeare decided to write on the real events plus a little extravagance, and then obviously they took some from real and Shakespeare, but it's almost as if they took from Shakespeare and then added a little extravagance to that, and it goes from there.
Yeah, this is what we get.
Next
one, it'll be starring a cat or something.
Next one, the UFO will come down in the middle of the battle and take Henry V off and give him some training.
Take over space France.
It'll be like Dragon Ball Z, guys, where they go to a special room where they step into an area and only their minds go to train, but their bodies stay stagnant and still.
Maybe.
You guys didn't watch Dragon Ball Z, I know that. But anything else before we kind of depart? I don't think we have officially like set up a movie for next time, so we'll tease that before we drop the episode. And thank you all for tuning in. We greatly appreciate you being here with us and enjoying everything. So check us out on our social media platforms. Check us out on YouTube, especially. We're really growing that out, fleshing that out. It's going to be freaking rad. Vince redid the website and it looks so amazing. If I had 2 thumbs, I would give it to Vince for that hard work he's done. But yeah, any last words, guys, before we close out the episode?
Nope. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it, you guys. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, we love you. heart you, appreciate you. And once again, thank you for tuning in to the Pause Rewind Play podcast. We'll catch you next time.